Okay, so today we're going to take the motor out of this X21 RS. The X20 is the exact same. They're all the same. You'll have two motor mounts, one here and here. This one you see is sheared off, so that's another thing you're going to see. Sometimes you have to keep a really close eye on these engine motor mounts so that they don't shear. So there's some parts missing off this bike. It's just it's a shop bike that we're working with as a project type thing. So first thing we're going to do is you'll have to remove your clutch cable. It's very easy to remove. You come here, you'll see the arm here. You literally slip it forward and pop it out the little hole on the side. It's not a hard thing to do. The carburetor is missing off of this too. Again, the carburetor is two 10 mil bolts, so it's nothing to worry about. Things that you do have to worry about when you're taking it off are on the other side. You want to take your stator motor your stator plugs and stuff like that off. But again, I'll show you that on the other side. So you do want to pull your spark plug wire off because it's going to pull on the engine. You're going to have to remove the exhaust. The exhaust on this one is just a 10 mil. So you just let's put that to the side. This exhaust was already partway off because there's another aftermarket exhaust on it, so I'm gonna lower the exhaust and put it out of the way. If you don't know where bolts are going to go back to, what you want to do then is keep bolts together. So if you have these two exhaust bolts here, keep them with your exhaust. It's pretty well that simple. So we're going to pull out all these out of the way. We're going to pull our cables out of the way. Our fuel filters out of the way. Okay, so next what we're going to do, we're going to go to the other side. I want to show you a few things. So that's what we're going to do next. All right, so I turned the bike around. So because there's a lot of wires here, you want to make sure that they're unplugged. You'll see like here, you want this is a gear shift indicator. You want that off. You're going to want this off. This is the stator plug. This is part of the stator. You don't have to worry about that. The stator can stay on. The stator cover is all going to be on. Something you're going to want to remove is your starter wire, which is right there. And for that, you need a Phillips screwdriver. Oh. So we'll take that off first. And because that's a tiny little screw, just screw it back into the thing. Then you don't lose it. And then when you're putting your starter wire back on, you're not chasing it all over going, hey, I forgot where my starter wire is. So you put your screw back in there. Then you're going to want a number 8 to take out the bottom of the emissions. There's 2 bolts usually on this, but I've already taken one out, so we got it up and out of the way. And this hose can be taken off too, so that when you drop it down, your intake neck is not hanging. Again, this bolt here can go right back up into where the emissions is, so you don't lose them. Your gear shift, all that stuff, it can stay on. It doesn't need to come off. So now I'm just going to show you real quick the plugs. So if you can't find your plugs, it's really easy. Just kind of tug on them like this, and then go to the other side of the bike real quick and see what you're tugging on. So you'll see this one here is this one. So I'm going to unplug the green. And then I'm going to check the other one. And this is the stator. The stator one you'll know right away because it always has yellow wires on it. So you want to disconnect that. Sometimes the stator one is a little stiff because it has got really big prongs on it. So there we go. So that's our wires that need to be disconnected. All of our other wires are good. They're not in the way. Now, a lot of people think that they need a jack or something to lift up this engine. This engine is very, very light. It's not heavy. Surprising for the amount of power it makes, but it is light. So when you do pop it off, first thing you want to do is you'll see this. Sometimes these have a bolt head on them, and sometimes they have the Allen head on them. This one has an Allen head. This one's sheared off, so it's not a big deal. I'm literally just going to put a screwdriver in there and punch it out. But I want to keep holding it in place. I don't want to just punch this out and then let the engine drop, because you're going to smash something on the front. You don't want to do that. So I'm going to get a bigger screwdriver, and I'll show you how to do that. So I'm going to take my screwdriver and put it in the engine bolt, where the engine bolt is. I'm just going to pop it through. Now, the weight is all on my screwdriver now. So I can go ahead and push that bolt out and leave the screwdriver in here. And you can go ahead and pull your bolt out. There you go. So that one's broke, so it's garbage. Toss it over there. Now, your back motor mount is a little bit trickier. You're gonna have to come down here. There's a nut down here. It should be a 12 or a 13. I think it's probably 13, just because I don't have my 13. So what I'll do is I'll go up there and I'll check it with the 12 first. Because it is a bit of a trick to get to, but you'll see it's right here, and it is a 12. So I'll go ahead and start loosening it off. Okay, there we go. So again, just put that off to the side. You can't get a screwdriver in here to feed through, to tap it through type thing. But we have all the weight of the engine sitting on this screwdriver right here. So we don't have to worry about the tension up or back here. So what I'll do is I'll probably get my needle nose here, because it's just jammed a bit, but it will come out. Oh, maybe it'll turn out. It's turning out just very slow. There we go. Okay. And you'll see here it's kind of jammed a bit, but that's not a big deal. Just move that spring out of the way. I'm just gonna grab my pliers. It'll make it easier on everybody. I won't hurt my fingers. It's dirty. I'm just going to take this spring off so it's not in my way. just gonna finesse my bolt out. There we go. So my bolt is out. Now, the only thing that's holding this motor in here now is my screwdriver. So now we came over to the other side. What I want to do is, I want to remove my chain. This chain here is not on right now. So it should probably be all bound up somewhere. So that's just the way life goes. So, what I'm going to do then is, can I take this? Yeah. I'm going to take it, my number 10. And I'm going to take the sprocket off. You take off that. That's just to secure your sprocket in place. We'll just slip our sprocket off. Okay. So now everything is off the bike. The engine's not being held in there or anything. All our wires are off, disconnected. All right, fuel lines are all off. All that stuff is done. So we'll go back to the other side. Now, you remember we put our screwdriver in here. There was a method to our madness. We go over it. If you notice, I just take the weight off with my knees, pull the screwdriver out, and slowly drop the engine down. And what I said about the engine is it's very light. You'll see now at the back of the engine, you have one more hose on here, but you can't get to it when it's up there, so don't try to take it off. But it literally pulls off. That's part of the emissions. So you just pop that off, and then just take your engine to the side. And that's how you remove the motor out of one of our motorcycles. On this side at the back, this is very important, is this spacer. You need the spacer. And the reason is for when you get to the other side, you want to stop it so you have room to put your nut on. If you put it on without the spacer, it's going to go straight through, and you don't want that. So I'm just going to put that on there like that. And I'm going to use my ratchet as a hammer. There. Just so I can get my bolt in place. Of course, I want to put that spring in the way, but that's okay. Because once we push it past that spring, I won't have to worry about it. There we go. Now, when you're trying to get it through the other side, you might have to wiggle it. See, like that? I wiggled it and it popped right through. So we got that motor mount in. Now what we're going to do is I have a brand new motor mount sitting around here. There it is. Yeah. Okay. So now we have our back motor mount in. All you have to do is lift up on the engine again with your knees. And we'll put our brand spanking new one all the way in through the top. And that's how you do it. And both motor mounts, put it in from the right side of your bike. So the passenger side of your bike, the right side, that's where you put your motor mounts in. All right, so let's go back over to the other side now. So our top motor mount, you see it right here. I'm just gonna go ahead and put my nut on. Put that in place. I will tighten that up more momentarily, more than finger tight. Then you have your bottom one. And you're gonna have to get down underneath to put that one in place. I pushed it a little far in when I pushed it in. Behind where the chain guide is here is where the other nut goes. So we're gonna put our nut up. And we're going to put it on. And we'll tighten that up with our number 12. This is going to be a tedious one just because it's very hard to get at. So you're gonna have to take some time at it, but you'll get it. All right, that one's on. This, of course, is a 13. Okay, so we got our 13. Now I'm just gonna get my ratchet. Oh, there it is. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So now our motor mounts are in place. Now you're gonna see your spark plug wire. It fell over on this side. It's not a big deal. Just feed it back over to the other side where it'll be used. Then you got your stator plug and you got your engine plug. So we'll put those both back over because they also get plugged in on the right hand side of the bike. Okay. But something I don't want you to forget either is to put your sprocket back on. Now when you put your sprocket on, a lot of people put them on backwards. I've seen it happen so many times. If the indent is on like this, that goes to the inside of the engine. And when you put your sprocket on, go ahead and put your chain on too. It'll make it a lot easier after. Okay. So our sprocket's on. These are free moving sprockets. A lot of people say, hey, my sprocket's loose. It's not loose. This piece goes on. And when it goes on, it locks it in place. And here's my two bolts for that. Now, even when I put my bolts in, bolt in. My number 10. If you have a hard time, you see your sprockets turning like this, put the bike in gear and you won't roll. All right. So now you see my sprockets in place, but it still moves. It's supposed to do that. It's supposed to be free moving like that. So don't be concerned. It's supposed to do that. The reason for that is that if it was too tight or there was too much tension on that, you would literally bust your chain every time you drove. So you don't want that. So that's why it free moves like that. So now we'll come over to the other side of the bike real quick. We'll come back over to our plugs. And if you reach back up in here, the stator cover plug is covered with a big rubber to keep it from getting wet. If you get your stator plug wet, your bike will literally die because the power will not be going through it anymore. And stator, like I said before, always a yellow wire, always. And so we'll turn our wire around. It's a little bit tough too to stick a stator in there too because they're really big pins on them. Okay, now we're gonna go for our motor plug, which is right here. The motor plug is green. Plugs in to a 6-pin. Take our spark plug wire, put that back on. And then right now, like this is the fuel line. So if the carburetor was on here, we don't have the carburetor on here right now, but if the carburetor was on here, I would literally just go over, put it on the carburetor. So, but that's it. That's pretty well how, and then you put your clutch cable back on too. But that's how easy it is to take an engine out and put one back on. Then you'd have to come down and put your emissions on. But I mean, that was very simple. You guys remember that. There's two little number 8 bolts. You go ahead and put that on, and that's it. That's all there is to taking a motor out on our motorcycles.